I thought it was appropriate that I go last because I am essentially water skiing on the wake of activism and success that my co-speakers have created over the last few years and decades, I dare say as well. I'm probably the least qualified speaker tonight, but I don't mind saying that because if I can understand this issue and take effective action on it, anybody can. I'm sure many of you will have questions at this point. So what I'm going to do is try and address some of those questions, preempt them, because when you speak to people on the street or in your family, friend circles, etc., you're most likely going to hear some of these myths put to you, and I want to empower you with layperson's language to be able to deal with some of those challenges and open people up to this issue without blasting them with science necessarily. So the first myth that I hear is we're bathing in radiation, we're bathing in microwaves. At a cosmic level we have microwaves that are coming at us, and I realise that Alistair and Erica have both mentioned this, but I want to try and put this into some context for people as well. Surely if there's microwaves coming at us from the cosmos, a little more can't hurt and we can't do anything about it. Well, this is the Arecibo radio telescope installation in Puerto Rico. It's massive, and it and others like it have got a radio silent zone around it because these instruments are trying to detect incredibly small signals coming at us from space. And note that these are not information carrying signals. These aren't pulsed signals like Alistair showed you. These are essentially tiny microscopic signals when you compare them to what we are allowed to expose our brains to. So whilst we have evolved with natural background radiation, those levels are tiny in comparison to what we're exposed to today. In fact, the background levels average 0.000000010 microwatts per square metre. In contrast, and this is where we'll put it into some context, the wireless standards adopted in the UK allow up to 9 million microwatts per square metre to be exposed to your brain from each wireless device that you own. As Erica and Alistair have explained, that is significantly higher. It's actually somewhere in the region of 9 quadrillion times higher than what we have evolved with. And it's high enough to elicit the changes that Erica explained to you, and Liz explained as well, EHS symptoms and oxidative stress, etc. So if we were to look at the natural background radiation, the amount of radiation we're exposed to naturally as being the equivalent of the width of a standard piano keyboard, the amount of radiation that the ICIRP say is safe and that the UK government says is, well, they don't actually say it's safe, but that you are effectively allowed to expose your brain to would reach all the way to the sun and back 4.5 million times. That's the scale of the difference that we're talking about. Professor Ollie Hansen calls it a biblical increase in radiation when compared to what we have evolved with. It's probably not going to surprise you that the UK standards were voted out of date and obsolete a few years ago by an EU parliamentary motion. Out of date and obsolete because they aren't taking into account these non-thermal effects. But incredibly, those standards are still used in the UK, and that's why we're seeing such a rapid rate of proliferation of wireless technologies into the environment. Another myth is there's no evidence or peer-reviewed studies showing harm. Somebody said to me recently, absolutely no evidence. This is absolutely not true. There's actually now more than 5,000 studies showing harm from radio frequency and microwave radiation. This is just a snippet of them. What's actually going through the screen there is something in the region of 2% of the studies that show harm. As Liz explained, the military's penned many of them. Many of them have appeared in peer-reviewed journals dating back to the 1970s. And again, as Erica showed you, Even the wireless industry has published studies showing harm. But as this piece of data from the University of Washington shows, if the industry funds the research, then the results are more likely to show negative. But if the studies are funded independently of industry and vested interests, the studies are more likely to show that there is harm caused. That's quite significant. Not all of the industry-funded studies are duds. This is the story which The Ecologist magazine ran in 2007, following the publication of a T-Mobile funded study into mobile harm by the Ecolog Institute. So the story is from 2007. The study was done in 2000, but T-Mobile went into a state of panic when they realised that the study that they had funded was going to show harm. So they did their level best to keep quiet about it. They commissioned 3 other research institutes to look at the same issue in the hope that they would report negative findings. And Dr. Peter Nitsky, one of the report's authors, said that when T-Mobile realised that research was going to produce damaging results, they immediately commissioned new studies to be done, and said that given the results of the present epidemiological studies, it can be concluded that electromagnetic fields with frequencies in the mobile telecommunications range do play a role in the development of cancer. This is particularly notable for tumours of the central nervous system. The role that they play in the development of cancer also includes initiating as well as promoting cancer. You can find this study on our website, stopsmartmeters.org.uk, by searching for Ecolog, like ecology without the Y, or T-Mobile. You should find it. In fact, the study was locked in German until a group of activists got hold of it and translated it into English. I wouldn't have known about it if it wasn't for that. I wanted to just show you this quickly. This is an image from a study by Kasari et al. In 2010. It appeared in a peer-reviewed journal, the International Journal of Radiation Biology. Again, you should be able to find this on our website. What it shows is a comet assay. This is a standard test for looking at DNA damage. Those little red comets should be little red balls without any tails coming off them, and what that's denoting is DNA damage. This is worrying because this is from Wi-Fi, 2 hours a day, over 35 days. So what we're talking about is 70 hours of Wi-Fi exposure, and this radiation damage can be cumulative. And as Erica explained, our repair mechanisms are inhibited by this radiation as well. School children today are facing the prospect of being exposed to a Wi-Fi emitting iPad or laptop for 12,000 hours of their school life, and then potentially going home, being exposed to more Wi-Fi, being exposed to a smart meter, deck cordless phone, and for any intervening period where they might not be exposed, they've probably got a smartphone in their pocket. Another myth. If the government thought this caused harm, they'd ban it. I know, again, Erica has touched on this, and so did Alistair, but this appeals to an unshakable faith in government's ability to do no wrong. And as a long list of public health disasters shows us, governments have got a great ability to do wrong and get things wrong on a catastrophic level. I don't know how many years or decades of denial and this list is not comprehensive, but this list would rack up, and you could add at least 60 or 70 years for denial of non-thermal damage from microwaves. Another myth is there's no known mechanisms for harm. So what I think we've seen tonight is that harm can be caused, but a lot of people will say it's non-ionising radiation. It doesn't have the energy to cause ionisation, therefore it can't cause harm. Wrong. The mechanism for harm is different to how ionising, so X-rays, gamma rays, etc., the pathway that is taken to cause harm is different from ionising radiation. But as you showed from the reflex study, which was again another mobile phone industry funded study, 100 million euros was poured into reflex, and it showed that 24 hours of mobile phone exposure can cause the same level of damage as 1600 chest x-rays. The difference is that the routes to causing that damage are different. There's a few different schools of thought, but I borrowed this slide, I think, from Professor Martin Paul, and what it shows is consistent with what Erica was saying, is that radio frequency and microwave radiation causes oxidative stress in your cells. This is talking about the activation of voltage-gated calcium channels within our cells that effectively lets calcium into our cells unabated. So this can produce reactive oxidative species, which in turn produce free radicals, which can then lead to protein, lipid, DNA, and cell damage. And it says that the EMF, the field, doesn't directly damage the cell, it deranges cellular metabolism. So it confuses the cell. The free radicals that are produced by this change in metabolism are what causes the damage. So another myth that you'll hear is, well, the industry and government say it's safe. They must do it, it's available. This might surprise you, but this was a statement made by the spokesperson for the wireless industry, who also headed up the Federal Communications arm of the government, the regulator in the US. And he said, "Let me be clear, the industry has not said once that cell phones are safe." Why is that? Here we've talked a bit about Public Health England and their claim that there is no convincing evidence. I think Liz touched on it and said that convincing, not a scientific term. If you are on Twitter and follow us on Twitter, we're at Spy Meters is our handle. You'll be able to see that for the last 4 or 5 weeks or so, I've been trying to take PHE to task on this issue and elicit a response from them that will make me sleep better at night. I began by saying, can you confirm the safe level of microwave radiation for a school child from a Wi-Fi router? So this is on Twitter, it's public, and I addressed it to them directly, and they responded by saying, this is a bit complicated, we need more than 140 characters to provide a response, so please email us. And I said, okay, if it's a bit too complicated, let me simplify it. Yes or no, do you, the PHE, publish a known safe level of Wi-Fi exposure for a school child? Would anybody like to guess their response? They haven't responded. And I've repeated the same message 4 times. They don't have a safe level, would be my conclusion from that. When the PHE appeals to ICNIRP, the former HPA chairman, the HPA was brought into Public Health England, the former HPA chairman said that there may well be bioeffects at exposures below ICNIRP guidelines and that a precautionary approach is required. Children might have a lower tolerance for one or more forms of this radiation than the rest of the population. Separate guideline levels may be necessary, say ICNIRP. So a question for your school, if you have children in school, is has the school created separate guidelines for protecting children and pregnant teachers? You know, if they have, you know, maybe they'll need to show those guidelines in court one day. This has already been talked about. This is Alistair mentioned this, but the industry has not only said, let me be clear, we've not said once that cell phones are safe. The industry's applied for patents in which they've said Wi-Fi and other sources of electromagnetic fields are harmful. This is a Swisscom patent. You can find it again on our websites by searching for Swisscom. They know that this is harmful. The insurance industry isn't concerned, is it? I mean, money talks, and if the insurance industry was concerned, then that would probably be an open shut case, but they're not, right? Wrong. The insurance industry is concerned about this. They're very concerned about this. If you read reports like these ones from Lloyd's, Swiss Re, which is one of the largest reinsurance companies on the planet, and Elliott Whittier, you'll see that they are very worried. Swiss Re, I think this paper was published last year. They talk about, in their emerging risks analysis, unforeseen consequences, in inverted commas, of electromagnetic fields representing the highest level of risk impact of any potential threat that the insurance industry is facing over the next 10 years. Insurance companies, I believe 60% of insurance companies now are refusing to cover mobile data carriers and mobile device manufacturers because of the risk of liability. They're distancing themselves, and as the Elliott Whittier report shows and discusses, if you're an employer and you're placing these technologies into the hands of your employees, presumably this applies for schools who are placing these technologies into the hands and laps of children in their care and teachers, then you are liable. The insurance industry is saying, we're not liable, we're not insuring you for that. And the government is not underwriting this either. If you follow this issue, you might be familiar with people like Barry Trower, who is a government whistleblower on this issue. And he talks openly about the fact that effectively, if you are the person that's signing these technologies into your environment, if you're the person that signed the contract, you're liable for harm. We all have a responsibility to look at this issue very seriously and do the right thing. And the insurance companies are worried about this kind of headline. This is from a story that was reported in the Telegraph, where an Italian judge recently ruled in favour of a claimant who blamed his brain tumour on 12 years of mobile phone exposure. He was a very high volume user. He was using his phone for between 3 and 5 hours a day, but according to our standards, that shouldn't cause any problems. But the judge looked at the evidence and ruled your employer is liable for this. Your mobile phone caused your brain tumour. So another myth, professional bodies and unions not concerned. This has already been touched upon, but I think Liz read from the TEC guidelines that state exposure to class 2B carcinogens in the workplace should be minimised. You can find that in this document, which is Occupational Cancer, a Workplace Guideline. So if your employees are a member of a trade union, are you following these guidelines and minimising exposure? If not, what are the consequences likely to be for you? The Professional Teachers Association in 2007 warned against Wi-Fi in schools until a full inquiry had been done and conducted into its safety. They were especially concerned about, the head of the Professional Teachers Association was especially concerned about findings that Wi-Fi networks can expose people to 3 times more radiation than cell masts when used in close proximity. Would you put a cell mast next to your child's school or on the roof? We all know that many schools have campaigned successfully to have masts removed. We should be campaigning to have Wi-Fi removed in that case. And no such study has been done that was called for. Well, there's an apathy claim here as well. This is a myth that there's nothing we can do about it. We might as well just accept it. Wireless is everywhere. You can't do anything. Again, this is not the case. The good news is we can all do something about this. We can absolutely all do something about this. Fred's efforts in pulling Tonight together are proof positive of that. Making a difference on this issue begins with awareness and then leads to action. And there's lots of people who are taking action on this. Erica showed the headline, but what this story of a father who successfully lobbied his school to get Wi-Fi removed from, it's a heartbreaking tale, because one of his sons died from a brain tumour. He was given a wireless iPod, I believe, for Christmas. He, unbeknownst to his parents, slept with it under his pillow, and 3 months later, he was diagnosed with a brain tumour. Unfortunately, it was too late for that little boy, but it wasn't too late for his father to protect his other child, and he did that incredibly successfully and got the teachers to stand up and take note. We've seen other examples of schools doing that. I think all the speakers have been involved in some way of lobbying schools and providing them with information that can help them make the right decision. The issue is that they're not being presented with this information by the broadcast media, which to a very large extent is reliant on radio wave and microwave technology. So you're unlikely to hear any of this presented in fact, you're never going to hear this presented in the format we're giving to you on mainstream TV, because they're just too reliant on this technology. They would be shooting themselves in the foot, and they'd effectively have to cease operating that night. So the difference is you guys and us, and there's lots and lots of people like us who are waking up to this issue and who are reaching out and doing something about it. You can definitely do something about this. In other countries, we've seen some phenomenal advances. Germany is warning its citizens about the use of Wi-Fi. They say that people should choose conventional wired connections. Germany recently rejected the idea of smart meters, by the way, which is obviously associated with my campaign, but I don't know whether to a certain extent the wireless element was associated with that, but Germany is actively helping its citizens to avoid too much artificial EMF exposure. Alistair explained that the Swiss are doing the same. I've read the report that he talked about that you can get available free from the Swiss government. It's great. They're talking in very lucid terms about how you can reduce your exposure and why you should do so. Israel, stop Wi-Fi in schools, Deputy Health Minister implores. Liz mentioned that. We have the French government and the Belgian government banning the sale and or advertising of mobile phones to young people. These are great steps that are being made. We had calls for Wi-Fi to be banned in schools here. Obviously that's not happened yet, but we can make it happen. Something that we can all do as well, and rather than refusing to lie down and just accept this, you can reach out, please do. If you feel a sense of anger and injustice at this issue, and you feel as though you are wanting to warn more people, that is a natural response your body is evoking. That's Mother Nature's way of saying, let's all get off our backsides and start telling people about this. Because any action you can take, whether it be with other people or whether it be for yourself, will make a big difference. The wireless radiation subscribes to the inverse square law. So if you double, I'm putting my head on a parapet here, given Alistair's in the room. If you double your distance away from the source, the exposure will halve and then halve again. I think is how it works. So any distance you put between yourself and the source of the exposure will have huge benefits for you. Turn things off at night, but if you can, eliminate these sources of radiation from your life, and if you can't, then reduce them. I would obviously encourage everybody to refuse a smart meter. If you're not sure why, please take a look at our website. I have leaflets. I also have a DVD that I will give you a copy of free of charge, where I lay out this issue in detail, because it's not just health issues that these things are threatened or are providing. There are other issues besides, but that's for another talk. Visit our website and by all means, take all the leaflets I have tonight and give them to your neighbours. Because if you can take that kind of action to wake them up to this, then that will have benefits for you and your neighbourhood. And given that we've spent a lot of time talking about, children being the most at-risk group here this evening, there's no reason at all why you can't light a fire in their imagination around this issue. What we're going to do, I think, if we've got time, after I've finished rabbiting on, is show you some of the equipment that you can use and get very cheaply. You can rent this kind of thing or buy it. They're not hugely expensive, but you can show people, you can make these hidden signals audible. Alistair played you some of the recordings, but you can actually take these things around your house and look at where the exposure is the worst, particular devices, etc. You can show that to children, and you'll see light bulbs go off above their heads as they realise that there's a big part of the picture that we're just not shown with this issue. What I'm showing you here is a snapshot from a study that was done by some, I think, 9-year-old girls in Denmark who became aware of the issue and thought, wouldn't it be interesting if we took the, I think, experiment we probably all did in science classes when we were younger of looking at how cress seeds germinate. And they did that, and they had a control group that wasn't exposed to any wireless radiation, and then another group that was exposed to Wi-Fi routers. And what they found was that cress seeds will not germinate when next to a Wi-Fi router. If the cress seeds won't germinate, what's that doing to us? They ruled out heating as a potential cause. And yeah, I think there's more to come on this at a more official level, but I'm not sure what I'm talking about at the moment. So, in closing, please protect yourself, protect your children, use a wired connection and not wireless. Thank you very much for listening.